Another week. If you spent any time outside this week, you know that it was very hot. You had to chug a lot of water. You were sweating whether you wanted to or not. Even jumping in the lake didn't matter most days. It was a warm, hot, stagnant week. Many days that we were on the water, there wasn't any wind even, and we had 90 degree, 92 degree, 94 degree air temp. Water temps were in the mid 80s. I had days this week I saw 85 degree water temp. When you caught a fish and you touched it, it was almost hot to the touch. Launching your boat and getting in the water to launch your boat just seemed like something you did, whether you had to or not, because it felt good. So it was a warm, hot week. And if you're looking at the forecast coming ahead here this next week, we're going to deal with it again. So things are warm, things are hot. It's brutal out there. So make sure you dress appropriately. I lived in my Blackfish UPF to wick the moisture off my body to keep me cool. I had it on all the time. I wear it around the house. I cut the grass in it. This stuff has been a godsend to me in terms of being comfortable on the water. I'm not reapplying sunscreen non-stop. If it gets really hot, even on these 90-some degree days, I just take this hood, flip it up. I got the sun off my face, off my neck. I'm wicking moisture, I'm staying comfortable. I got it off my arms, and I can keep fishing and stay out there longer. So these are really cool. This is just the Angler hoodie. They make it in a guide series. There's various types of these shirts in any color pattern you like. So if you have a specific color you like, I'm sure you can find one. So staying comfortable on the water, staying cool on the water is important. Hydrate, lots and lots of water. You should be chugging bottles of water nonstop. I also bring some Powerades or some things with electrolytes. A lot of guys and gals might use Pedialyte. So make sure you're hydrated on the water. Bring the proper food so you can be nourished and that sort of stuff. These really hot, warm days can take a lot out of you, and generally you don't notice it happening. So by the time you're sweating so much that it's uncomfortable, you probably should have been drinking enough water to put that moisture back into your system. So when you sweat all that water out, you need to be drinking water to replenish that. So make sure you take care of your health around the water, whether it's proper clothing, nutrition, all that sort of stuff. So easy to get out there, easy to get excited to chase down some fish, but make sure you take care of your body. That's important, very important. Same thing if the kids are in the boat, that sort of stuff. Let them jump in the water, take a swim. I know you want to be out there and fish. I'm as guilty as the next guy. I want to fish hard, I want to get after it. But if I take my kids fishing with me on these hot days, take a break once in a while. Let them jump in the water, splash around, come back in, get rejuvenated to be chasing fish. As far as how the fish go, everything I'm seeing in terms of quality, size, has pulled off the banks for sure. Even early in the morning, like we tried in the morning hours to fish up shallow and we still struggled, never caught that big bite. Majority of the fish are offshore structure, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're deep. It just means they're not hugged up against the bank. You have some giant weed flats on some of the lakes you might fish that might go out 100, 200, 300 yards from shore. They can be scattered amongst that off deeper water because the water becomes more uniform the further you get away from the shoreline. So even though you might be in 7, 8 feet of water, 6 feet of water, 200 to 300 yards out, you're gonna find those water temperatures cooler than the more stagnant water up against the bank, along the dock lines, inside turns, inside bays. So even though you might be in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 feet of water out middle of the lake, you watch your water temps change. So you can catch fish shallow still. You just gotta pay attention to the type of structure you're fishing. We caught some really nice fish. I got my biggest smallmouth earlier this week on a shallow flat in about 6, 7 feet of water, 200 yards from shore. So those fish were sitting there. They have spawned out. They're into a post-spawn pattern, pre-summer pattern before they slide onto the deep ledges, and we caught those fish in the early morning hours in shallow water, but offshore. And then you actually watch the transition happen as the day progressed, where we started catching them in 8 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet, 14 feet, as deep as 16 feet as the day progressed. And then if we were up shallower in the same spot we caught them in the morning, we just caught rats. We just caught little 10 to 14 inch fish. The big ones have moved out. So you got to pay attention to that on the time of day, especially when it gets this warm and there's no wind. We slid out and caught fish better there. So offshore structure is important. We were fishing the immediate weed line for our largemouth on Lake Minnetonka and other lakes like that. So we were fishing in that 6 to 12 foot range. So we weren't up in 3, 4, 5, 6 feet of water like we've been for a while. They have definitely transitioned out onto that emergent weed line where you can still see some weeds, but you can't see the bottom. And then we caught them as deep as about 16 to 18 feet as well. So some anglers were catching them in 20-some feet of water. For sure, I'm sure there's fish there. We never did it. We never had to. We caught a lot of fish in that 6 to 12 foot range. and we were throwing jigs, flipping jigs. We had clients throwing weightless wackies still, just cast them, do nothing. It's a patient game, especially when it got so hot and stagnant. These fish weren't apt to be moving around. They weren't swimming a ton. Let that wacky rig just float down right to them. If we know there's fish there and we have the confidence that there's fish there, we let it go right down, soak in the water, saturate, marinate, we said, let it go right down to the fish and let them take it. We caught them on jig worms, Ned rigs, drop shots, Nico rigs, swim jigs. I was throwing a swim jig quite a bit where I could pitch it into a pocket, count about 1, 2, 3, and then I'd slowly swim that back. So by the time I got to 3, it'd go down 5, 6 feet, and I would just slowly work that back to the boat. And I could fish that 1/4 ounce swim jig. It was a light swim jig. I wasn't fishing a 5/16 or a 1/2 ounce or anything like that. I was fishing a 1/4 ounce swim jig with a paddle tail on the back, and I could just slowly thump that right through the weeds, tick the weeds, get some reaction strikes out of some of these fish that might not be moving around as much. So crankbaits, we caught a bunch of fish on crankbaits. We could throw DT10 was catching a bunch of fish. So a lot of baits are working right now. The biggest thing is you want to look for that clean weeds. You want to look for where the weeds are, and there's sporadic pockets and that sort of stuff. I'm not fishing the balled up mats of milfoil yet. There's probably some fish moving around, but I don't have to. I can look at where these weeds are clean, and I can fish it effectively. And I'm really fishing slow. The boat, the trolling motor is on a 2, maybe a 3. I'm going really slow to find and catch these fish. So get out there and chase them down. The bluegills are on the weed lines. If you want to catch sunfish right now, it's super easy. They're all over the weed lines. They're hitting our jig worms, they're hitting our wacky rigs, they're bumping into our crankbaits. We're not targeting them right now, but maybe we should have. But if you want to catch bluegills, it's an easy time of year to get out there. Just put a little twister tail on a light jig head, get out in about 14 feet of water, throw it in, feed it some line, just let it pendulum back to the boat. Just hold your rod, let it pendulum back to the boat, and you'll feel that fish go, still, they'll eat it. They're really, really, really aggressive right now. So great time of year to chase bluegills. We didn't target any walleyes, we didn't target any crappies. It was mostly bass fishing, and we targeted some northern pike. We threw some swim jigs and chatterbaits for northern pike. They're chowing on everything. And you're gonna lose a lot of jig worms right now on pike. The pike are on the immediate weed line, right where the bass are starting to set up, and the pike are on the chow. So great time here to go fishing. Again, biggest key right now is probably angler safety, angler health safety. Make sure you wear the proper clothing. If not, wear the sunscreen, drink lots of water, eat a good breakfast, and if you can dictate or decide when you fish the first few hours of light and get off the water. By noon it's so hot that you don't want to be out there. If you're doing water sports and zipping around, it's a great time to be out there. But if you're standing in a boat, not moving a ton, just sitting there, get out there when the sun comes up and be off there by 10 o'clock. Not only is it more comfortable on the body, but it's better fishing and there's less pressure on the legs. So otherwise, hope you had a wonderful July 4th holiday. We spent it with our neighbors. We had a neighborhood cookout, had some great food, and now we're back after it here, chasing fish on the water on a Sunday today, and then obviously this week, hopefully things heat up, no pun intended, and we continue to catch a lot of great fish and have more stories to tell you next week. So if you get out there on the water this week, be safe, have fun, continue to enjoy your summer break, stay cool. We'll see you next week.